Some of you may have noticed that some of the objects in our scene, like some of the docks or even some of the buildings, have a ladder attached to them, but the player can't actually climb it at the moment. And I'll even grab one of the docks to show you what I mean. Where'd that go? Oh, there he is. So yeah, you'll see some of these dock pieces have ladders on them, but the player can't actually climb them by default. They just kind of, in fact, I think for most of these, they should just kind of pass through them. Which, while, you know, it's fine for the purpose of aesthetics, we want to actually make sure that the player can climb them. So what we can actually do is create a trigger that will allow the player to move up and climb into the dock here. So what we want to do is in our dock object or on our house object here, we can go ahead and add a collider. I'm going to do it on the dock here because it's a little bit easier to see. We're going to add a box collider. We're going to set that to isTrigger. And obviously this box collider encapsulates the whole thing. We don't want it to do that. We just want to cover the ladder. So we're going to move that forward in the X direction by clicking the X icon here and dragging to the right. We're going to try to center it as best we can. And then in the X size option, we're going to make it a little thinner because we don't need it to be that big. That's probably good. Next, we're going to do the same thing with the Z size. We're going to click this little Z icon and drag it over. And I think that looks good. That about covers our ladder. And then we're going to add a tag. So we're going to click tag. We're going to click add tag, hit the plus sign, and type ladder. So now we need to click our object again and make sure we actually give it the tag that we added because it won't assign it to our object on its own. Then we need to actually go to our player script and we're going to add a little code to handle doing that. So what we need to add at the top is two things. We need to add a bool climbing. That's going to be set to false by default. And then we'll say I think we use an integer. No, we use a float. We say a public float climbing speed, and we're going to set that equal to 10. And then what we need to do is scroll down into our controlling ship stuff here, into our method for movement. And we need to say underneath where we assign or subtract gravity, what we need to do is say if climbing and input.getButton, not get button down, but get button jump, because that means if we're holding the space key, we want to set our player velocity.y equal to our climbing speed. So that's going to make it so that when we're holding the space bar, our player just kind of floats up as though they're climbing the ladder. Now what we need to do is drop below our toggled control method here, and in between its closed bracket and the class closed bracket, add some space, and we're going to do another onTrigger enter. And we're going to say if other.tag equals to ladder, we want to set climbing equals true. Otherwise, we say private void onTrigger exit. If other.tag is equal to ladder, make sure we give it that capital L. We're going to set climbing equal to false. And we can go ahead and test that out too. So we'll say, switch back over to our scene view here. I think that should be a good spot for that. We'll rotate it just to make sure I can get to it from the beach there. We'll grab our player pirate and move him all the way over here so he's nice and close. And we'll hit the play button. And we'll see if we jump into it. Oh no, for some reason, it didn't climb great that time. So we'll jump and there we go. If we get nice and close to it and we hold the space bar, we should be climbing up. And we can actually take that, and now if there are other areas that we want to put a ladder, like say, for example, we want to add one to our hut here, we can do the same thing. We can hit add component box collider. And I can't actually see where that box collider got put. Usually there's like a little box thing you can see. Maybe it's underground. Yeah, there it is. So sometimes they'll kind of put it in a weird spot, but what we can do is the same thing. We can drag it over using this time it looks like it's Z we need to drag to the right. So we'll drag that over. There we go. So it's lined up with this kind of ladder type thing here. And we're going to make it a bit wider with the X value. I'm going to use the Y center to slide it up again by clicking Y and dragging it around. And then we're going to make the Y size quite a bit bigger because this is a pretty tall ladder here. I think I'm even going to make my Z size a bit bigger too here. So there we go. That looks good to me. And then we'll set that to isTrigger and we'll tag it as ladder. And now, if I go up to my building here and I hold spacebar, I can climb. So anywhere in your game that you have ladders or you want to put a makeshift ladder, you can add that collider now, and as long as you tag it as a trigger and as ladder, it'll be able to be climbed.